In this project, you'll turn on an LED light with the light sensor and the analog read function depending on how much light the light sensor is sensing. If you haven't done the last project where we turned on and off an LED light with the light sensor and digital read, that might be a good one to review and compare to this one so you can better understand how analog read works. In the void setup function of this program, you'll use the pin mode function with arguments A2 and input to set up the light sensor in the smaller block of ports on MakerBoard at the bottom. Make sure the plus and minus signs of the light sensor match up with the plus and minus signs of the ports. You'll also use another pin mode function with the arguments to and output to set up your LED light on port 2. Inside the void loop, there's an if-else statement. The if statement has two parts, a condition that's checked between the parentheses and the actions that are run if the condition is true. In this case, we're using the analog read function to check the reading on port A2. Now, the light sensor has a reading range from 0 to 1023. Again, you can think about digital and analog like a light switch versus a dimmer switch. When we're using the analog read, we can read values that are between off and on. When we're using digital read, we're only reading for off or on. So, when you check the analog reading of port A2, the light sensor is going to send back a value between 0 for completely dark and 1023 for really bright. The condition that we're checking here is that value less than 100? So this less than sign is called a comparator. Here we want to see if the analog reading from the light sensor is really low. And if that's true, then run the code between the curly braces of this if statement. Here, that's a digital write function with the arguments to and high to turn on the LED light. There's also an else statement in this void loop. The else statement actions will run if the if statement's condition is false. So, if the void loop checks, is analog read A2 less than 100, and it's not less than 100, the code skips the actions of the if statement and instead runs the actions of the else statement. The else statement here is one function, digital write to low, or turn off the LED plugged into port 2. Once the code has made a decision if it's going to run the if actions or the else actions, and it runs that code, it will fall to the bottom of the void loop, and when it sees the closing curly brace of the void loop function, it jumps back up to line 12 and checks the condition of the if statement again. The really cool thing about analog read here is that you can change the threshold where your LED light is going to turn on. So for example, you could add a 0 here, and now if analog read is less than 1000, turn on the LED. That's going to be almost all the time. Or if you want your LED to turn on only when it's really, really dark, you could change the threshold to 10. So now when analog read is checked, if it doesn't have a value of 9 or less, the LED is going to stay off. If it does have a value of 9 or less, the LED is going to stay on. So you can play around with this threshold to change the sensitivity of your program. And don't forget to upload your code to the MakerBoard after every change to see it in action.